Good morning, everybody. It's just a little bit after 8:30, so we'll call this morning's meeting to order. And we are going to probably do a little bit of variations on our agenda, beginning of our agenda this morning, because one of our commissioners will be a few minutes late, and I understand we're waiting for a member of the Sheriff's Department to join us as well. So with that in mind, our first item is the approval of the agenda, and I don't see any agenda additions this morning. Okay.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. At this time, we will do our employee recognitions and awards. We have two longevity awards today. Is this working? All right. Okay, our first one this morning is Larry Young. Larry has 20 years of service with Clay County. Larry, this is presented to you in grateful recognition for 20 years of dedicated and outstanding service to Clay County.
Thank you very much.
And Larry is usually the one that's up here talking on behalf of all of his people when they get their anniversaries.
Great.
And now it's your turn to have somebody talk about you. So Rhonda, you were going to...
I get the honor. Don't be scared. All right, Larry has been with us, yes, for 20 years. Larry started out in our financial unit, actually, and within short order moved into social services, into a social work position. He worked with folks with disabilities for a number of years, and now has been our supervisor in our income maintenance unit. So I think his move through the agency speaks to the work that he does, and he has just been an amazing supervisor. He supervises a large group of folks, 26 folks in the income maintenance unit, and they administer a variety of public programs and has been an amazing asset to that unit and the work that they do. So, and the people we serve. So thank you, Larry.
Thank you.
I don't see Katie or Julie here yet this morning. All right, so we'll see if they end up coming in. But anyway, Katie Johnson with Corrections Department also had 20 years of service, and so we'll have a plaque for her as well. And Sheriff, I think we're still waiting for. Yeah. Okay, so we'll come back to Mark and your award deal in just a few minutes here. All right, we can move on with our citizens to be heard. Do we have any citizens to be heard this morning on any items that are not on our agenda? Any citizens to be heard? Seeing none, we'll move into the approval of payment of bills and vouchers.
Move to approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. Approval of minutes from August 15th.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. All right, we do have a contribution that to recognize today when we have our, the public gives contributions to various departments of the county for various reasons. We like to make sure we recognize them, and today we have a $250 contribution from J.B. Huff, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing Hogue Incorporated, and they put that contribution in to go towards the Clay County Sheriff's Canine Program. And we just want to say thank you to them for that contribution. It's very much appreciated. Okay. Is Dave Overbo here? Okay. got requests to wait on these things and the things we can do with that here yet.
Lieutenant Green would be ready to give us
Oh,
update.
okay, Brian, yeah, okay. Good morning. This is item number 7 on the agenda. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning. I'm here today because of the hazard mitigation and assistance guidance, and our hazard mitigation plan is due. Every 5 years, we have to redo it. The state of Minnesota is going to apply for a grant, which will pay for most of it, and they'll hire a contractor. Then there's some in-kind money that we have to come up with, and then basically we should be able to cover that with our meetings, my salary, and then with the city of Moorhead. So I'm looking for a resolution basically to participate in the 5-year hazard mitigation planning process, and a resolution authorizing me to be the executive assign agreement on behalf of Clay County, basically would be the grant. And then the last thing would be a letter of commitment of funds that I need a signature from the county board chairman and county administrator. I didn't think I'd be back up here doing this again, but yes. So by 2018, we'll get started, and hopefully we'll have it done before I leave. So it should be painless. I don't think there's going to be too much changes. A lot of the mitigation that's been done with the city of Moorhead and with the county, that's already in there. It just basically is going to be updated. But again, it's important to have a mitigation plan in case we do have a federal disaster. That's the first thing they're going to ask, if you have a mitigation plan, and we'll have it as soon as we get it done in 2018. Any other questions?
Let's see here in your brief to us that you're anticipating the local match to be $11,250, and you're assuming that's all going to be in kind.
Yes. Actually, the last 2 times that we did it, we've gone over that amount, so I'm sure we'll get it covered. My wages will be going in there, I'll be covered. And then the city of Moorhead, if we have a meeting, which we're going to have quite a few meetings, along with meetings with each city, and that gets counted. There's a certain amount of pay that you get for any public citizens that come in. So.
All right, so we have 2 action items here. The first is the resolution itself, authorizing participation in the planning process.
I'll move the resolution.
Second. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Frank, you had a question?
Yeah, I think we should just, it explains here what it's all about. I think we should tell the public what this hazardous mitigation is all about, just sort of a breakdown, why are we doing this, or, I know we have to have it. Okay?
Right, yeah. Well, it outlines basically what kind of disasters can happen within, Clay County. We do the assessment again of what is our major disaster and what we can do about it, Again, it's already done, you've done a lot. It's about moving houses out of the floodplain, things like that.
Okay.
Safe rooms and stuff like that, sirens, how we contact people in a disaster. It just basically, it's a lot of review that we already have, but then again, it's just to update it. So
It could have to do with flooding. It could have to do with
all hazards.
a major railroad spill.
Right. Yep.
Or could some other chemical type of
Yes.
warfare type of thing?
Yep.
All those things.
Again, I think it's more to get the public involved, and also each city involved, to make sure, hey, we have this mitigation going on. Do you have anything that you need to add to this? I know Holly's been pretty active. Well, of course, the city of Moorhead is really active in it. Ulin's active in it. Some of the small ones are not, but you look at that Comstock in Georgetown, they've come forward. They're looking for sirens, and actually, there's no money in there to get it. But if they have it in a mitigation plan, if grants come available, then they'll be eligible for it. So.
Thanks for explaining that to the people. Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any further questions or comments?
Is this for both resolutions?
We have a separate one. One's a resolution, one's just a letter of commitment. So.
Okay.
All right, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. And now we have the letter of commitment of funds.
Motion to approve.
And we have a motion to approve that.
Second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Do you need that signed now, or? Copy. Vicky's got it, or Colleen, you got one for?
Colleen's got one.
After, we can do it after the meeting then, or? Do you need to take it now with you now?
No, I do not. I can
Okay.
get them later. But, Mr.
Okay.
Chair, I do have a couple more items.
Okay,
We
perfect.
got a few minutes.
Yep, we do.
September 10th, we have the Zombie Fun Run in the city of Moorhead. It's put on by Cass County and Clay County Emergency Management. It's going to kind of be a fun event in Gooseberry Park. And it's on a Sunday from 12 to 4 o'clock. We're going to have the race course. It's not really a race, but it's just a 5K, and then there's a walking, and then we have booths and stuff like that, and have zombies up there. Not my idea, but we went along with it, and we're helping out, so I just wanted to
Come on now, you gotta work with the millennials.
Yeah. I do have a flyer. I just want to give it to you, and I just welcome you. If you guys want to come out, that'd be great. Anytime during that day and see the activity. So I'll hand out a flyer to you. And we wanted Brian to be the main zombie, but he refused to do it. So
I think they have a bride, maybe zombie.
the second thing that I'd like to bring to your attention to is that we have a full-scale exercise coming up. We've done a tabletop, we've done a functional, we've done a tabletop, we've done some drills leading up to a full-scale exercise. This is going to be within the city of Moorhead, and we're going to have a pipeline release exercise. And it's coming up September 14th, and it's going to be from 9 o'clock till about 1 o'clock. We're going to open up our EOC. We're going to exercise a lot of stuff doing with the command center out at the scene and with the EOC. Again, if you guys have time, you'd like to come out to the scene, and it'll be out by the Country Club Parkway, where we're going to run basically the main exercise, and then we have the EOC will be open, and we'll run that. And there's a lot of things that we want to test. And I think it'll be a great exercise. If you guys get a chance on September 14th, anytime again, you can either come up to the EOC or you can come back out at the scene. I'll hand out another flyer for that.
Okay, you got a hand on it?
Yep,
Okay.
excuse me.
That's the week where the conference at,
Oh, we're in, okay, we're.
You guys are gone?
We're in Granite, okay.
Well, you know, we could always come back to just that one day. No, just kidding.
This is the day we have to be there.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else, Brian?
No, that is it. So,
Thank you very much.
thank you for your time.
Thank you. Sheriff, are we good to go? Okay, all right. These are always good times when we have something like this that comes up where we can recognize good work that the county has done. So I'm going to turn this over to Sheriff Berquist, and I'll let him explain what all is going on here. Sheriff? Okay, Mark, all right.
Well, once again, thanks for having us this morning. I apologize for the delay. When I set the date up here, I had forgot that it was the first day of school, and Deputy Lean had to get his young child in the kindergarten. So once again, thank you for having us. We'll start off here at approximately 4:10 in the morning on July 23rd, 2017. Sergeant Bredman and Deputy Jason Lean responded to a medical assist call within the city of Barnesville. The Red River Regional Dispatch Center informed responding officers that a 25-year-old male was not conscious and not breathing. The involved deputies were in the city of Barnesville and arrived within moments. Sergeant Bredman and Deputy Lean, along with Barnesville Officer Pearson, removed the victim from his vehicle, where they assessed him and determined that he was not breathing and had no pulse. Deputy Lean began chest compressions, and Sergeant Bredman provided rescue breathing until paramedics arrived on scene and continued with life-saving efforts. The victim's name is Kyle Preston, and he is here with us this morning in the back. Scott with Barnesville Ambulance has had some contact with him, and as you can tell today that Scott is remarkably healthy. Kyle is remarkably healthy. Scott stated with no uncertainty that if it were not for the quick action and response taken by the officers, Mr. Preston would not be here today. In my conversations with Scott, it is clear that Sergeant Bredman and Deputy Lean played a valuable role in working together to reach a successful conclusion on this medical assist. Scott had indicated to me that their efforts helped save their patient's life. The key factors which the officers accomplished to obtain the success were the quick response time, the proper assessment of the victim's condition, and the correct application of CPR. Above all, the most important factor in this incident was the officers' abilities to work as a team towards a collective goal. It's our department policy on awards states that to receive a life-saving award, the officer must distinguish themselves by an act that contributes to the saving of a person's life. Without a doubt, Sergeant Bredman and Deputy Lean saved Mr. Preston's life during this incident. So we'd like to present them today with life-saving awards.
So this is an extra meaning of the word serving and protecting. I think this is something that really bodes well for our community. And Kyle, we're very happy that the outcome for you is very good. And thank you for you and your family to be here. Glad to have you. Okay, thank you. Chad, you didn't know you were going to get to see all this stuff, though.
That's okay. Every day.
All right, we are at the point now where we can move into our 840 item here, and this is consideration of Michael Burns architect contract for West Central Regional Juvenile Center. And I do want to just note that we have Brian and Stephen here, and we also have Commissioner Peterson from Cass County here, and I think he wanted to be here just in case our board had any questions on the actions that Cass County has taken to support and help fund this as we move forward. So with that, if you end up wanting to make some comments, Chad, feel free to let me know. Okay, so Mr. Berg, we'll start with you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the commission. Good morning. Maybe I'll mention this so Steve doesn't have to, but Steve suffered a loss this weekend in his department. A longtime employee, a 20-year employee, Susan Hansen, passed away this past weekend. And I know I was over there Friday. We were talking about this issue, and she was at work, and so
we're very sorry to hear that.
So leave it up to Steve. But Steve worked with her for 20 years, so I'm sure it's quite a loss for his department today. To go into this project of the West Central Juvenile Center and the expansion of it, this has been something we've been talking about and studying for now at least 2 years. I know we proposed to the committee before a one-floor expansion a couple of years ago, and it just wasn't the right timing for that. And then we also have been talking about a transitional house that Rhonda could certainly be part of and utilize that with a couple of the commissioners here, and we studied that aspect of it. And we feel we've got something that can probably meet the needs. I don't want to say meet the needs of everyone, be one component of helping out the and I even hazard to say out-of-home placements, because sometimes there's a group of youths that we're looking for placements for them, and we just can't find the right fit and the right programming and things for them. They end up being sent out of county to the cost of a lot of dollars. So if we enhance the non-secure, we feel that there can be some programming advantages to that with this program. And then, of course, you've all heard about the juvenile capacity over there the last 2 years, and it's been busting at the seams, and Steve has been turning some of the counties away, and that is a very uncomfortable situation at 2 o'clock in the morning when they have a youth or two that they need to have in custody and they can't find a place for them. So the time has come, I think, to look at and seriously consider this expansion. And we only thought it would be fair to you folks. We know you've talked about this, but Steve has put together some proposed budgets going into the future and how this expansion can be paid for, and I'd like to turn it over to Steve to talk about the expansion of the facility, or the funding of the expansion, and how that can be done.
I wonder, is there one extra?
So, Mr. Chair, I'd like to turn it over to Steve for that presentation.
Good morning,
please.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. It was a little bit of a challenge to look out a couple of years, but for our purposes today, I just want to be clear that what I did use was numbers in financing from Lori as far as wages for 2018, the funding mechanisms from 18, and also I did talk with Lori and getting a potential principal and interest payment. And so in looking at that, if it's two-sided, if we take a look at the 43-bed secure program first, the revenues that we're looking at, again, show what our current bed purchase rate is and what our members are currently purchasing, which would be 31.625 beds. We also projected, in looking at moving to the North Dakota site, an additional 2 beds of non-member usage, or excuse me, of member usage for counties who are overutilizing the number of bed days that they buy. There's additional revenues that would come in with that. And with additional bed space, we also look at the potential of as we did a number of years ago, with taking non-member counties, and so in our budget we have 3 beds projected. So based on those numbers of a 60, in this case it would be a 61-bed facility, we would have 36.625. Again, there are certainly additional opportunities to bring in additional revenues there, but for today's purposes, that's the funding mechanism that we use.
Now you've got you've got your proposal for 2018, then it would look like in 2019, right? And the 2019 would be completed.
The 19 would be as if the facility was operational from January 1st, yes. And so we would, the plan that we have does, just to note, we do receive rent from state probation and juvenile probation on our first level. The first floor would be remodeled and utilized for our non-secure program. And so we would be losing some rental dollars from both of our programs. Additional revenues, there are miscellaneous revenues. We get a national school lunch program. We're a participant, and so that some additional funding. So basically, on today's bed rate, not selling any additional beds, we have revenues of roughly $3.2 million. Anybody have any questions on revenues? If not, our salaries are going to see quite an increase. We would move in the new facility from operating in 3 locations to 8 locations as far as needing staff in the secure unit. And so our Minnesota Department of Corrections and the Prison Rape Elimination Act requires 1 staff per every 8 youth. And so we would be looking at additional full-time salaries in that for that program. We would also be looking at roughly an additional 10,000 hours of variable hour employees in that. In addition to staffing plans, we currently have 1 full-time nurse and 1 16-hour nurse that we share, a benefited position that we share with with Kathy at Public Health, we would be looking to move that position to a full-time nursing position, which is in our other salaries section, or excuse me, other professional services in 6271. And we would also be looking at the need for an additional secretary with the increased numbers. Susan Hansen's position was actually a shared position with the Morrid School District, and the Morrid School District has notified us that they would, based on this need, they would want to be looking to add a full-time position on the school's end, and so we have Sue works. Sue's shift was in the afternoon to evening, and so she utilized the school work, but she also was there for our visitation, and so we would be looking to have funding built into this to cover that other half that the Morrid School District is currently paying. Otherwise, when we look at our budget, there are not a great deal of changes other than the increase in our required benefits. Of course, we have training budgets for our staff that were required under the Department of Corrections, additional services as far as food, room and board for the youth. And again, the number for principal and interest that was provided to me from Lori was roughly $200,000. That would be what would be added back into our budget.
And that would be for the 1/3 overall projected cost of the project that would be for the regional group.
That's correct. That would be roughly the project, the portion of the secure unit is roughly $5 million. Cass County has stated they would come forward with $2.5 million upfront in the project, and so we would be looking to bond $2.5 million over roughly 20 years.
And I believe this Commissioner Peterson, but I think it's your intent to provide cash. Is that correct from the Cass counties?
And Mr. Chair, and I probably should have started out with this, but we were kind of waiting to put the budget package together. There are really 3 segments to this program that we're looking at, and that is the secure and the non-secure. And the 3 parts is the fact that Cass County is upfronting $2.5 million because the rest of the Minnesota counties have bought into the current structure, and they feel they're willing to contribute that as an obligation, and they're looking at a long-term partnership with it. So that 2.5 from Cass County, 2.5 from the consortium, I'll call it, or the advisory board, and then 2.5 from Clay County for the non-secure. And what Steve just described to you would be the cost to the consortium is about the sale of another 6 beds to cover the costs. And if we are truly as tight as we say we are, the counties that are within this 11-county consortium should be able to purchase an additional 6 beds in order to cover the secure cost, the additional $2.5 million.
Yeah, and that would be once it's
up and running.
Up and running.
Yes.
So we have
2019.
We have 2 kind of significant deals here for our board. One is the short-term deal, which is going to happen for 2018, and that's the one where we're going to be utilizing the facility in Cass County. And so now on the 2018 budget, on the expense side, you've incorporated into that the personnel that would be needed.
We have, correct.
To run that, correct?
Yes.
And so that personnel then, once that's complete, would then be needed for the new facility.
Absolutely.
And
yes.
so in the 2019 proposed budget plan that you have, that would cover those employees coming over from Cass County, in the Cass County building, coming over, plus the additional needs that might be there.
Yes, that's correct.
And so right now, on the 2019, so right now you're showing expenditures over revenues of $467,000, but as Mr. Berg just stated, the additional revenue by having all the additional beds has not been taken into consideration on the top.
Not, just 3, but we certainly have.
But
the
it's the
ability.
same 3 that you've incorporated in
Correct,
each.
that's correct, yes.
But we would highly expect that to be
Yes,
way more.
right, that's correct,
Right?
yes.
That's, okay, all right. And in the 2018 budget, the 41,750 principal and interest and the 111,000 depreciation are the 2 line items that typically made up the principal and interest portion before. That covered the old bond payment, which is just now being retired in 2017.
That's correct.
So that would be replaced with the 200,000 in the 2019 budget.
Yep.
And you also then, just going back to the revenue side, you're using the same annual price per bed in the preliminary estimate for 2019,
Correct.
correct?
Correct, and so, and we've been at 83,500 in both 2017 and 2017. We're projecting that for 18, even with the Cass County facility addition, and so there certainly is the possibility that bed purchase.
But you're also including that same price for 19 in these
Correct.
financial estimates.
Yes.
And just, thank you, Mr. Chair, that does clarify a point, because I said the 6 beds that Steve and I had talked about that would need to be to cover that, and that's at 83.5. And of course, that bed price, it's reasonable to expect that to creep up every year with the cost of inflation, so.
Well, it's either up or down. It's either up or down.
It'd be nice to go down,
Well,
that's for sure.
But when you look at, and Stephen, maybe it's worthy for you to just talk a little, spend a minute to talk about the potential opportunities that your facility had that we had to turn down, because I think that's an important part of the conversation here that the rest of the commissioners may not have heard about, that would have brought in additional revenue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have, in addition to having to turn down our member counties, we've also turned down roughly 33 non-Minnesota or non-member counties, which most of those youth are looking to provide either in our 30 to 120-day treatment program or our Pathways program. And so the opportunity there would provide bed space to add those youth for significant amount of revenue for our facility. Currently, our non-member rate is $300 per day, and so there's a great deal of opportunity with the additional bed space that we would have under this expansion to offset some of our costs in the future.
All right, thank you.
So where's the next closest facility?
There's a small facility located in Crookston. They're only 8 beds, and so they're a regional facility, and so they have counties that exclusively use theirs. We're looking at Northwest Juvenile Center in Bemidji and Prairie Lakes in Wilmer. That would be the closest facilities.
Okay.
And Mr. Chair, just to follow up on that for Commissioner Gross, currently there are 11 counties in the advisory consortium, I'll call it, that make up this region and supply kits to this location.
Okay. Commissioner Mojo.
Can we talk a little bit about that advisory committee and how it was taken by them and their feedback on the proposed expansion?
We met in July, and the advisory board, the possible expansion was well received, I would say. We actually have a special meeting scheduled for Thursday to talk about some of the things that have happened since our last meeting. But overall, we didn't receive any negative feedback during that meeting.
Yeah, I think it was very positive. I think when they learned too of, we told them that there was going to be a significant contribution from Cass County. I think they really felt good about that, being Cass County was the new member in the group. So I think that all went really well. And I sent you an email, and I think Commissioner Mojo, to your point too. I think before this is ultimately done, it might be worthwhile for us to do what we did a while back with Prairie Lake Solid Waste when we had some financial issues, is to call a public meeting of all member counties so that all commissioners can come in and we can provide them what would be all the details, whether it's a new joint powers or whatever we come up with that would govern this thing for the next 20 years. But that way we could have an open meeting where all commissioners from all counties could come and get a very complete update on, so they know because every county is going to have to vote on this final agreement. So Commissioner Mojo, I think that's something that I'm hoping that we can accomplish and do. That would make this thing, and of course, then we might get a variety of different questions. Maybe it will require something we hadn't thought of. But
No, we're looking at a 20-year bond, something like that. What's the commitment from the counties, the other counties? Do they have to sign on for 20 years, or can they back out of this?
That's a very good question, and what we are going to expect from member counties now is it used to be where they could sign like a year-to-year agreement. We want out of everybody before we go through this expansion is to get a long-term commitment and contract by everybody. That's exactly what I'm talking about when we want to bring in all member counties so that they know what we're doing. Because we can't go in and do this and have 6 counties walk away 2 years later. But I think we've even talked about that in our last group meeting, and I think they're all very interested in that. So I don't believe that's going to become an issue. I think, as a matter of fact, I think most counties are going to want that protection so that they have the facility to go to for the next 20 years. Okay, Stephen, so we've kind of covered the secure side, which is the joint venture. I don't know, Commissioner Peterson, do you have any comments you'd like to make before we move on to the non-secure? Yeah, if you want to. Yeah. Or you can come up here too.
Oh, that's okay. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you. I've not had a chance to speak. My name is Chad Peterson. I'm currently serving as Chairman of the Cass County Commission. Not had a chance to speak to you directly regarding this issue. We are very much on board with this. I think the teamwork we've had from everything from the GFMEDC to our Joint Drug Task Force, Joint Dispatch has worked well. To me, it only makes sense to continue this relationship. So with time, I think we've proven this relationship works, and that's why we want to continue it. To maybe your address Commissioner Mojo's concern regarding the smaller counties, one of the biggest things I've stressed during these meetings is the intent is not for Cass County to come in and force everybody else out. We want it to be as inclusive as possible, because the perception, my perception was, maybe a misperception was, we were being a bit intrusive in sort of walking into the room and saying this is how it's going to be. And that's the exact opposite of what Cass County wants, the exact opposite of what I want. This has been a team in regard to that board that has worked. We want to continue that relationship. And I think it's good for all of us. We're growing, you're growing, the region is growing, and to chase people out for the sake of autonomy or whatever you want to say doesn't make any sense, because those partners are needed and they need the services anyway. Again, I just want to make myself available if you needed me to address any questions you may have or concerns you may have, and to reinforce the fact that I guess we're showing up with a great deal of money, which we weren't specific about during our last meeting, but now it's come to that $2.5 million, and the intent again is cash, to show how concerned and how much we want to invest in this product.
All right. Well, thank you, Commissioner Peterson, for being here this morning and your comments in regards to our joint facility. And you're 100% spot on when you say that this is a project that just cries for regional approach for all of us to put together. So thank you for being here, and thank you to the rest of the county commission and Cass County for supporting us.
Absolutely. Thank you, Commissioners.
Right, thank you. Okay, so Stephen, we'll move on to the non-secure side now, and this is 100% funded by Clay County. So
that's correct.
So just to set the table, not for the folks sitting here, but for the people who might be watching too, is we have in that facility, we have certain areas or floors of the building that are secure, then we have an area that is non-secure. Non-secure means the doors are still locked at night and that type of thing, but they don't have, you know, so with that in mind, this proposed expansion would lead to a first floor of the building, which would now become all non-secure, and maybe provide even a little bit of what Mr. Berg talked a little bit about earlier, about maybe some transitional different type of a setting within there for some folks. So
Correct.
I just wanted to
Yes.
kind of,
Our, as you mentioned, Commissioner Campbell, the first floor would become our non-secure program. Currently, our non-secure program is a 12-room, 15-bed program on the second floor. We would be moving down on the north side. We would have 16 beds, very similar to how we have it now. We would be adding additional classrooms in the middle portion of our facility, which is the education program is provided through the Moorhead School District. And we would also then have another additional 16 beds on the other side. Again, we have had a lot of conversation and talking with Rhonda Porter from Social Services. It's very important for her not just to have additional beds, but additional opportunities. And so we've been working closely with Social Services throughout our home placement committee to find different options and opportunities that can take care of some of the great needs that Social Services has had over the last couple of years. And so the transition program is one of those options. And so we're very excited about that in looking at our facility. Our budget's based off, we have budget based off on 27 beds. Just from a project standpoint, essentially the 2019 projected budget would basically be a very similar plan to what secure detention is. We would be talking about similar bed space, similar staffing plans, and so that I think is a good reference to what we're looking at. Again, we would be looking at utilizing 12.75 beds from Clay County. Again, projecting usage of both of our non-secure programs, but also our transition programs, and projecting another 14.25 beds from our non-members, which would leave additional 4 to 5 beds for our additional revenues. We have miscellaneous revenues that's attributed to our Pathways program. We have miscellaneous reimbursements with our National School Lunch Program. And an interfund transfer number is the number that's utilized to ensure the cost of operations of the facility. And so we would have non-secure revenues of $2.6 million projected.
so when you say interfund transfer, where's it coming from?
Those funds have been coming from our general fund each year.
And Mr. Chair, in that thought, Steve and I have had some discussions that there has been interest by other counties to buy into this program, and
right.
we feel that we should continue the dialogue with you folks and maybe look at a different configuration for the non-secure if people still continue the desire, because we do have that extra county dollars that goes into this, and if it's a facility that's available and a facility that's demanded, maybe we should be looking at some other agreement with this as well. There's a lot of things that need to still be worked out, and you talked about that. There's long-term commitments. I know Cass County wants a consortium or a joint powers or an agreement that is that 20-year agreement, because they're making a big investment. It's the same with the other counties. So this should probably be some of the conversation as well moving forward.
Commissioner Gross.
Just look at, I mean, we're talking some bunch of money here already, but I'm looking at, are we going big enough? I look at your last comment from the last meeting that you turned down 60 members from county requests for placement, 19 non-members in secure, 72 placements in non-secure. I mean, are we big enough? Can we handle it? I mean, are we gonna ask for more in another year or something? I mean, I'm looking at all the ones you turned down already.
Well, I mean, we certainly, if you asked us 5 years ago that we would be talking about the numbers that we were at, I think the answer would be no. Having said that, the facility that we have before us is actually doubling the bed space of what we have. And so we feel comfortable that this bed space is going to be something that we would be able to use well into the next decades. The other piece of that is the footings on the addition will have the capability of going up a third floor in the event that we needed it in the future. And so, but again, I think doubling the space of what we have right now would certainly be sufficient for our needs.
Yeah, I would concur with that. I think our goal on this was, when we do this too, to be looking out for something that would take us out hopefully another 20 years. I think has been our goal here, was that this would last that long. But you know, there's spikes in these juvenile issues that, you know, that change, and I know our county attorney's office can attest to that. There's periods where it can get extremely high, and then there's times when it's not. But anyway, I think my biggest concern on this, because I really think we've got a really good financial plan on the secure side. I think we've got that covered well and know where our revenues are coming from. Can you explain to me a little bit more about how we went to $1,022,000 on the board care juveniles for Clay County, and then the board care juvenile revenue of $1.1 million, and is that, how are we getting that, is what I want to know.
Yes.
Are those tax dollars? I kept hearing that we were going to see some major savings from, you know, social services. So can you please explain that?
Sure. In line item 5421 from Clay County, if you recall when we were here to the board 2 weeks ago, Rhonda Porter, Director from Social Services, was here. And one of the things in part of our planning for the transition house and looking at different things, there are youth that were set aside that we would hope to keep in the community, and that was part of what that expansion was hoping to do. And at that meeting, Rhonda stated to the board that she felt that she had about $500,000 in placements that are currently going outside of Clay County.
So these are kids that
we're already placing.
We're sending someplace else because we don't have the appropriate space here.
Correct.
Okay.
With the addition or expansion of the non-secure portion, she felt comfortable that these youth, the youth that we went through individually, could have been placed. So that projection of that going from 485 to 1.1 million really is a transfer of youth that Clay County is already spending their dollars on. And transferring them, or keeping them, I guess, in our community and with their services next to their family. In some cases, their ability to utilize their school, their doctors, and so that certainly would be a benefit to our youth.
And Mr. Chair, just may say too that this is an expansion right on the county grounds that we have it right within, squaring off the building that is there, so there would be no additional infrastructure that would be required. And I think that was asked last time by Commissioner Gross about the parking thing, and we've really taken care of that with the current projects that are going on. So
and the expansion, future expansion, I think what you talked about too, which is really important, is the current facility is basically a 3-story.
That's right.
And we're looking at a 2-story expansion. Right. So we, you know, for the next generations that would come after us, if there was the need for further, they do have the ability, and we're designing the construction to be able to put a 3rd floor on the future, just like we did with our law enforcement center for future, be able to go above the garage. So
that's correct.
All right, and I know Commissioner Mojo and Commissioner Gross, both of you have been heavily involved with the out-of-home placement and all of that type of thing, and I certainly hope that this plan could help to some degree with what you've been working on to, it can't alleviate all the problems, obviously, but if it's something that can leap us into that next area, I think this is pretty an important discussion to have, and so I don't know if you have any additional thoughts on that based on what you've seen, or.
I think you're right on. I think there are pieces that we can't track in these budgets that are costs that Clay County is spending staff time to do face-to-face visits, and this isn't going to alleviate all of those circumstances, but there is a demographic of kids that will really benefit from an expansion like we're talking about, and I think I surely hope that it will help save window time for staff. I mean, that's a liability in itself to have staff on the road as much as they are. So.
I guess it's not going to settle what we were trying to settle, you know, trying to transition kids out into the public, you know. It's going to do some of that, but I think it's very much of a money-saving thing, you know, and I think that's what we have to, you know, not that we should let that go ahead of taking care of the kids and stuff like that, but hey, money's tight, so I think it's a good move.
But it always kind of goes back to this piece that bothers me, is that at what point, I mean, you can expand beds, but at some point we have to figure out what that root cause is. I mean, we can build bigger jails and we can build bigger detention centers, but the reality is that it's heartbreaking that we have this many kids that are in something like this. And so I think this board has been open to being proactive about treating mental illness, if it be in a jail or whatever. But I think, going back to Commissioner Gross's piece, at some point we can put more kids in here and get more revenue dollars and more counties can sign on, but it's the how do we set them up to launch them to be successful in life and transition to be contributing members of society, and I don't think this solves that. You know, I think that's the magic question everyone wants to know, but
That is the $1 million question, because ultimately and it's something, you know, what Commissioner Mosher just said about the root cause. I've used those exact words almost my entire time on this county board. And it's one thing to just keep feeding it, but how at what level are we investing to find solutions so that we don't have as many of this? And then, you know, and now we have the opioid crisis that goes on. It's the same thing. And so we have all these task force, which are great, but hopefully we're going to come up with some answers. We'll solve some of this problem. But that, she was right on in that comment. Okay.
Mr. Chair, if I just may, Commissioner Mojo is just spot on. There's many costs here that are incurred by the community that are not listed and really are tough to list. And, you know, for repair of these children, if I can call it that, and many times it's not, but Steve has been extremely successful in putting together programs. That's why there's one of the reasons why there's such a large demand here, because they're looking to send people here that want to be in a 90-day or 120-day program. They have drug programs, they have sex offender programs, they have many different programs. But it's also a problem with the family members and the counselors and things. We talked about this with the out-of-home placement issue, is that if you send these kids elsewhere, 200 miles away, and they get involved in a counseling program, and now they're going to come back after their treatment, now they have to acclimate to new counselors and new support groups and things, and that can be really disjointing for these kids. So keeping them closer and keeping our social workers close, keeping the families closer and involved and all that, it's not the cure, but it's the best attempt that we can make.
Very good. So that's going to be a conversation that's going to go on and on and on.
Yep.
I think at this point we need to move on today, but could you talk to us a little bit Brian, about the architect's contract.
Right, and frankly, that's really our next move. We have been negotiating and discussing terms and things with Burns and Associates, Michael J. Burns, and we have a contract. You don't have a copy of it before you because we don't normally supply the contracts because it's usually kind of thick, but we have reviewed the terms of the contract, and it's pretty much a standard form. Jenny has reviewed it as well, Smaraza, our assistant county attorney. There are some grammatical errors, such as the address that's on it, and it lists the construction manager on that. That has not been decided or appointed by you folks yet, so we felt she felt that was being proper to be in there. And then there's some things on the liability, so there's just some numbers that needed to be changed on it. But the gist of the conversation, or the contract, is that it is a roughly an 8% contract for architectural fees, which is fairly normal, especially for a remodel and construction. Remodel usually runs a little bit higher. They usually run between 8 and 10%. He's willing to do this for 8%, and then he's also going to give us credit for the 2 years back that we've spent about $24,500 on schematics. So he's giving us credit for that, so it comes down to be in that 7.6 range of a percentage. It's a lump sum based on the projected cost, construction costs of about $6.5 million. Now, also in the language, it says that if the price goes up by 5%, that we would renegotiate a additional fee. And also, if it goes down 5%, we will renegotiate that fee to reflect that. So that's what you have before you that we're asking for permission to go ahead and sign and move on with. And I don't know, Ms. Maraja, have we covered the elements of the contract?
Yeah, that's the basic gist of the contract, and it really the most unusual piece of it is the credit for the monies that we've already spent, and that's certainly in our favor. And Mr. Berg touched on the plus or minus 5% of the projection costs would mean that we'd take another look at the percentage, but at this point, the contract would be based on a $6.5 million projected cost at 8%.
Brian and Stephen, according to your memo, Stephen, on the back side of the memo where it talks about the contract, it states, with permission of the Clay County Board of Commissioners, the West Central Regional Juvenile Center would request to enter into a contract with the architects. Are you suggesting that this be a contract with West Central then for this purpose? Or is this a contract from the architectural standpoint, is this a contract with Clay County with the approval of West Central?
With Clay County.
So the contract is with Clay County?
Yes.
But, so when we meet, we're meeting with our group on the 7th, I think it would be appropriate for us to tell them that, subject to their approval, that we would be entering into this, because they will ultimately be responsible for part of that.
Well,
wouldn't that make sense to do it that way?
I think that makes a lot of sense, but I think we also, and Steve has talked about, and I have talked about this many times too, that board is an advisory board, and this board is the one that holds the authority for that juvenile center, and all that happens or doesn't happen. So you are really holding the cards for signing the contract as well. We utilize those dollars to pay for the fees, and what we've paid out so far are utilizing those consortium dollars, I'll say, but that's the understanding that's been for 20 years, that this is the governing board for that facility, and that is an advisory board. And those things may change when we negotiate things for that 20-year.
Well, yeah, there might be a difference of opinion when you get into a more longer term thing.
Right.
I think the counties are going to expect a little bit more from us as well in terms of say in things. Yep. So what's the board's wishes? We've kind of covered this fairly well. Commissioner Wayland?
Well, this, along with the jail, this has been one of our biggest challenges, and so I want to thank Steve and Ryan for all the work they've done on this and gotten us to this point, and also to Commissioner Peterson and Steen from Cass County and the entire Cass County Board for supporting us in this partnership. So I think it's important that we move forward. So with that, I would make the motion that we approve the architectural contract.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second. And I do have a question on.
Okay, so we have a second is from Commissioner Gross then. Okay, you have a question?
Now, as far as Burns, the architect, I mean, do we have to go through how do we select that, or did we, I know we've been working on it for a couple of years on this already, so were they originally selected through a thing, or, because I know on the jail project, we went through the process of selecting somebody, and.
Right, well, Mr. Chair and Commissioner Gross, the jail project, the county board started with Klein McCarthy back in '08 and '09 to do some studies, and we just continued on with that agreement. We did not go through a selection process, we just went through, or just continued on there. Right, and the same with this. In fact, Burns and Associates were the one that designed the original juvenile center, and so we've been working with them over the years for different modifications, and this is a professional contract, so you do not have to competitively bid. We just feel that it's in our best interest, the county's best interest, to continue working with Burns and Associates on that, and you have every right to do that because it's a professional contract.
Very good.
We think it's the most cost-effective way because they've been involved in it rather than starting over with.
Well, I don't want to really start over again. I mean, I realize that we started with them, you know, and we have the potential of getting 24,000 back on it, you know, and stuff like that. It's good, you know, I just wanted to know if we had to go through some sort of renegotiating.
Okay.
I'm fine.
All right, any other comments on the motion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. We have a unanimous go ahead with the architects, so, okay. Brian, you have one more thing?
Well, I do. I thank you for that consideration, and I'll just refer to a comment from Commissioner Whalen. Steve and I will gladly accept your thank you for it, but you folks, I know Commissioner Campbell and Commissioner Whalen have been on this committee for a long time, and also Commissioner Mojo and Commissioner Gross were on another committee to study the home crowding, and you guys understand these problems better than anybody because you represent the community and you have done a lot of work on this too. So we'll accept your thank you as long as it includes the on the behalf of the county board and you folks, the work that you guys have done too to make this happen. So we really appreciate your work.
Thank you.
I just have one more comment. Steve, my condolences to you and the loss of your staff, and I know that she had a real heart for the people that she worked for.
Yeah.
And for lack of doing this too soon, I just want to ask if you need an approval by this board to fill that position.
If the board would be willing to do that, we would take that.
I'll make a motion to approve the position fill with any possible backfill if needed.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same time, motion carried. All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Brian, and then we will have the meeting on this Thursday with the group.
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock. 10 o'clock, yep. Thank you, Commissioner Peterson, for being here. All right. Okay. I kind of anticipate that one was going to take a little longer than we had. Our next item is the quote for Saban ADA pedestrian ramps and sidewalk. Dave and Eric, you got a few things on the agenda here today.
We do. I don't think it'll take us too long.
Good. We're late.
So the first item that we have on our agenda is recommendation for quotes regarding some ADA work in the city of Saban. I think we did have a city council member here a few months back, and he expressed their willingness to work with the county on this, even cost sharing on some of the improvements. So what we did is we got quotes for a rapid rectangular flashing beacon that's allowable to be pushed by pedestrians as they cross the roadway. There's one right behind my house where I live in the city of Dilworth that I think works fantastic. They They say this is the next best thing to some sort of a signalized intersection, which would be overkill for the amount of traffic here, but nonetheless, I think this improvement that we are moving forward on is a good one. In addition to this, Eric and some of our staff worked real hard on putting together a design for some improvements that would be handicap accessible on all 4 quadrants of this intersection. It's going to improve the ped ramps itself. It's going to be inclusive of replacing curb and gutter. It also does clean up a little bit of drainage, and it does help the access, the way the access is currently being utilized at the general store there. Eric's talked several times with the landowners in the general store, and we're going to clean that up as well. So it takes care of all kinds of issues. These ADA type projects are not cheap. They're very expensive. They're very complex, and we did only get one bidder, but we do know their qualifications. They've done actually quite a bit of the work out front of the courthouse, and they do a nice job. So we feel very confident that we'll get a good job. One thing in particular, if things aren't done just right, it's not uncommon to have to take a lot of concrete out. If you don't get it poured just right, you can check the forms, and you can try to envision that you got it right, and then after you pour the concrete, you lay the level out there or survey it. And we've had to tear out concrete before based on, it's just kind of complex work. So what we would propose to do is we'd like, I guess our recommendation is to accept the one quote that we did get from Key Contracting. Our estimate was $54,620. Their quote came in about $2,000 less than that at $52,300. The city of Sabin is willing to contribute up to, is it $11,000? Is that correct? So that would pay for a portion of, well, the entire project is about $9,000 more than this. The light itself, with some county labor, is about $9,000 more. So it's about $61,300, and they would cost share about $11,000 of that. So we do have maintenance funds available, luckily this year, that we would cover the remaining part of that. The other option would be is to try to maybe look at a early spring letting on this same work. Eric and I talked about that in great detail this morning, and I don't know for sure if I feel comfortable that we would absolutely get a much better bid than this. Being that we do have the beacon on order, it should be here shortly, it would be kind of nice to get it done, and I guess that's why we're leaning on getting it done. Eric compared the numbers to what we did out in front of the Family Service Center last year. We did some concrete work out there, and the prices actually were better than what we paid for at that time. So,
I just want to comment. I had a conversation with the Sabin mayor, and they're really excited about the safety aspect that this will add. And then my second comment is that, because this is such a smaller scope of a project, my concern is that if we wait till spring, these contractors are filling up with very large jobs. This is kind of a job that needs to be completed in a fall when people are trying to fill up their fall projects. I'm going to make a motion to approve this.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion. I want to ask, when we originally talked about this in our highway tracking, it was talked about being the total project being a 50-50 split. And now we're looking at significantly more on the part of the county than than the 11,000 that Sabin, or 9, whatever their number is.
Sure.
And it's our responsibility on the ADA portion anyway. So would it be safe to say that there would have been some required attention to the ADA crossings regardless of whether this was done or not? That would be the county's financial obligation?
Yeah, it is listed on our ADA transition plan that we did for all the intersections and courthouse facilities that we do have. So this is one of the targeted spots in I think our goal on the transition plan was a 20-year plan. And, and that plan's not hard and solid, but what we try to do is pick up a little bit of these each year. And we picked up quite a bit of the stuff all the way around the courthouse. So far we've, and we will pick up this. We picked up 11th Street when we did the mill and overlay on 11th Street. So I guess, yes, you're spot on there, that this is listed on our plan, and we have committed in a report to replace intersections just like this.
So this would be one less that we'd have to do in the future. And so if the resolution or the motion right now is to go forward with it this fall, I agree with that. Do you have funds within your maintenance budget this year to cover those
Correct, yep,
costs?
yep, we do. And, you know, part of what you said is what we talked about, that the city of Sabin would cost share on, you know, and they are covering 50% of the signal, and then the remaining, so what they're looking at doing is giving us back 2 years of their wheelage tax funds, which is about $11,000.
Okay.
So that's what they're doing. So then the remainder share, they said we would be willing to cost share on the improvements on the corners as well.
All right. Very good. All right, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Let's move on to the quote on the landfill pavement. I know this was brought before the Solid Waste Advisory Committee. They feel it's a necessary deal to do. It was recommended on part of the Solid Waste to move forward with this, but it's action that's required by our board. So, Dave, if you want to briefly talk about that.
On this one here, it's not quite as complex as handicap accessible type concrete paving. It's a little unfortunate with the timing, but Solid Waste Administrator is not here. Last week he was on vacation. I think he's down in the cities. And I don't feel 100% comfortable without going through the numbers with Kurt moving forward on this.
All right.
I wonder if it would be okay to, we'd recommend maybe we could wait 1 week. That way we could have some discussions with Kurt. I think, I didn't make it to that SWAC meeting. I think Eric was there. And I think there was a discussion of maybe requesting that some cost share be implemented with Highway Department as well. We, in early stages, we kind of expressed our interest that, you know, this is concrete paving on the very south end of the building. It is primarily used for solid waste. So I guess we kind of felt that, you know, to be honest, if solid waste wasn't in the building, Highway Department probably wouldn't do the project.
And I agree with that. I think it was, you know, something that they just naturally would do, is if they can get somebody else to help pay more, that's they want. Grant and I are on that committee. I wear that hat here, and my hat here, I would say, I think it's solid waste responsibility to pay it too. We've taken enough from your highway department, I guess. So. And I think they have the funds to do it.
Is it a conflict for the bid if we delay it a week?
I don't think so. No, I think we normally have 60 days in order to approve.
So what's the additional discussions you need to have with Solid Waste Administrator?
Let him basically commit to that expenditure out of his budget. I didn't know if I wanted to approve it for him.
We could approve it subject to that, I think, if you just want to move forward.
We could do that too.
I mean, I think, again, if it's something you want to work in this fall, it goes to the same comments that Commissioner Mojo made on the other project.
True.
What are we paving down there with?
So this would be so there's the scale that's out on the south side of that building, and then there's a pretty decent sized concrete pad, but it's only about as wide as the building itself. So what this would cover is the area between the existing pad and the scale, so further south, and then it would kind of wrap around. Am I correct with that? And I guess I do have it.
But there's another significant part of that project too. It would also concrete that swale, which is a drainage issue that would take all that water to the ditch, which is important right now because it softens it up where it's at right now. Otherwise,
we have a lot of erosion problems out there, and this project will fix that as well. And kind of like Dave was saying too, as far as the landfill operations, you know, you have the scale there, which most trucks pull up on and then go in. Some of the private loads, is my understanding, they swing off to the side and don't go over the scale. And this pavement is kind of to accommodate a lot of that private traffic. So they'll pull up next to the building, I think then they'll go in, pay for their fees, and then head into the landfill from there.
I guess I personally would like to see more if it really is something that's going to be utilized enough to garner it being paved, personally.
Yeah, I guess it was requested, I think, right, by the landfill employees through Eric, and then a design was put together, and it just kind of grew into what it is today. We took numbers, and personally, I don't think there's as much risk in this project if they did want to wait and try to get, you know, the numbers were, you know, real close to our estimate, but the difference between number one and number two, we did get 2 bidders on this one. Quite a significant difference. This one might be one that, you know, it wouldn't hurt maybe to rebid it in the springtime, but.
well, if we have a request to wait and get more information, then I think that's appropriate that we do that. So let's put this on again next week.
Okay.
All right, your third item.
Our third item is a bid opening on a bridge. So when the bond funds finally got passed and approved, Clay County was approved for our County Road 57 bridge replacement over the south branch of the Buffalo River. It's kind of south of the city of Baker. We've got 2 electronic bids that did come in prior to 9 o'clock. So they were reviewed, all the material is there, the bid bonds are there, and it's actually a really nice way to get bids. There's absolutely no mistakes, and all your information is there, otherwise it won't be an approved bid. So we've got 2 electronic bidders, and I think Eric's got 4 paper bidders, so we can run through those.
Yeah, I'll do the electronic ones first here. So we did get 2 electronic bids on this project. The first one is from Redstone Construction. There's a bid bond present, and the bid was submitted at 8:43 a.m. And total amount is $531,093.50.
And which contractor was this?
Redstone Construction.
Okay. And the bid again?
$531,093.50.
Is there an addendum?
No addendums on this project.
All right.
The second electronic bid we got was from Robert Schroeder Construction. The bid was received at 8:54 a.m. A bid bond is present, and the bid amount is $542,988.80. It's $542,988.80.
Maybe for the people watching this online too, our engineer's estimate for the project is $580,922.00.
Very good, thank you.
All right, we'll open up the 4 paper bids.
Very good.
So the first one's from Corby Contracting, Fergus Falls, Minnesota. Looks like we got a bid bond present in the amount of 5%.
Go ahead, read her up.
Okay, the grand total is $496,646.64. That's $496,646.64.
Corby Contracting is currently building our bridge up in Hagen Township right now, so.
Very good.
Where is Redstone and Robert Schroeder from?
Schroeder is from Glenwood, I believe it is, just south of Alex. And Redstone is from, I think it's Mora, Minnesota.
Mora?
Mora, yeah, it's kind of by Lake, Mille Lacs Lake, I think.
Okay, the next bid is from M&K Bridge Construction from Walnut Grove, Minnesota. Let's see. There's our 5%. See the 5% on here,
Some
Dave?
of those are kind of hard to
I
read.
know, sometimes they all look a little different.
There it is.
Ah, so the bid bond is present, amount of 5%. And the total bid amount is $472,364.80. That's $472,364.80.
Keep getting a little better.
The next bid is from Swingen Construction from Grand Forks, North Dakota. All right, bid bond is present, the amount of 5%. total amount is $576,771.00. It's $576,771.00. And our last paper bid is from Garrett Hansen Construction from Black Duck, Minnesota. Looks like we have a bid bond, 5%. And the total amount is $452,927.00. That's $452,927.00.
All right, we have 6 bids here. Our low bid appears to be Garrett Hansen Contracting for $452,927. That's well below the engineer's estimate, so I think at this time it would be appropriate to accept that contingent on your final review of the bid.
Wow, yeah, fantastic bid.
So moved.
All right, so we have a
Second.
motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there a second?
Yep.
All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. There you go. You got good bids there. Thank you. All right, Lisa here. Sorry, and Julie will, and Katie will get to you very shortly here. Sorry we're running late. Good morning, Lisa.
Good morning. Thank you very much.
Nancy,
Comment quickly. Lisa, I know your presentation will come. Do you happen to have pictures? Typically, we've asked for pictures of the lighted.
on this flash
drive.
They're going to put them up over
Perfect, thank you.
All right. Good morning, Nancy.
Do you want me to take
So we
it?
have, is that thing on to, oh, they're working on it? Okay. Okay.
Well, I'll give you a little
yeah,
background while
sure.
we're waiting for the presentation. A couple weeks ago, we got notification that there were 2 buildings within the city limits in Moorhead that were coming back tax forfeit, properties with buildings on them. And we decided it would be important for us to do some inspections. One of these properties we had done some abatement work on earlier this summer. And after the inspection, Nancy went with our inspection team, and we found that both properties are appropriate for demolition. The first is in the Oak Court neighborhood, and it has been subject to vandalism, and one of our building inspectors kind of gently went through a little bit of the floorboards and things, and the property has been determined unsuitable for occupancy for quite some time. The value of that lot is likely more than the cost for demolition. And so while we do recommend immediate demolition, there have been kids that the police have shooed away from that property recently. We don't want, the city does not want to interfere with the private market, and so we recommend demolition before tax forfeit sale, but we are not intending to take that property. It sounds like the county staff could manage that property demolition. The other property, the one that we want to talk to you about today, is at 209 14th Street North. When the inspection team went to that property, they found that it was in extreme condition, a lot of accumulation of materials. There are rodents in the property, and the low estimate of the cost to repair the property exceeds the value of the lot. It's $30,000, but I think it could add another $10,000 onto that. The value of the lot is $24,200. And do you want to just page through the photos maybe, Nancy, and so you can kind of see? I mean, that's overgrown foliage onto the sidewalk. That's not too bad, but you get up to the house, and it's in bad condition. The water was left on in the property, and it's been probably at least 5 or 6 months since that has happened. The owner did pass away in the property, and the whole house is covered in mold. And there's an extreme accumulation of materials in the property, waste of all kinds in the property. So you can just page through the photos. And then, so the city of Moorhead has some federal grant funds that we could use to clean up the property. And we would be interested in doing so for the health of the neighborhood. One of our staff noticed a dead rat in the driveway and a dead mouse in the driveway, and the police officers said that they could hear something rustling in the walls. And just the other day, since we've talked, one of the neighbors said that they had experienced rodents in their house, and so we're worried about the impact on the neighborhood. And we have had a discussion with Habitat for Humanity, and they feel that this infill lot would be a project that they would want to take on in 2019. So it would be our intention, if we can make a deal, that you provide this property to the city of Moorhead at no cost under the blight removal, that we would clear the property and make it available to Habitat for Humanity to build a new affordable home for a new family and bring some new construction to the neighborhood. I'm jumping the gun a little bit because we are so concerned about the health impacts, and we also have a grant spending deadline. We don't always have these funds available. And so what the city council has not acted on this item yet. Their meeting is September 11th. So what I wanted to do with you today is preview this issue, and then if I get some head nods from you, then I would bring this item to the city council on September 11th and bring this back to you on the consent agenda.
Yeah, and I don't, personally, I don't know that it's clearly blighted. And it's clearly a potential problem. I don't know, I don't see any reason why we couldn't approve it contingent on the city council's action. Then you don't even have to come back here. I think that's an option that we as a board have to do. So it clearly, something needs to be done.
Absolutely.
And my concern was more on where the funds come from to get it. And you're saying that the grant will cover that?
We have a federal grant that we can use for blight removal, and we have an approved activity for that subject, or for any property in Moorhead that meets certain criteria. And so the city council action is necessary, I believe, for you to process the tax forfeiture. And so we will do that on Monday, or we will ask the city council's authorization of that on Monday.
I guess the reason I asked that is part of your memorandum to us, it says that Clay County would be responsible for site clearance and restoration, but you're saying that the federal grant will cover that.
In other circumstances, it would be that we would need to do, but we have a cooperative relationship, it's all going well, and so in this circumstance where we can find a reuse for the property, we feel this is one we could take on. We'll leave a little bit of money on the table, but not a whole lot, and we'll get it cleaned up much sooner this way.
That was my question too. I just wanted to clarify because of how it's worded. It sounds like if that grant piece somehow defaults or is not available, it's going to default to Clay County. And so I just want, before any of this is approved, I want to make sure.
And it would, but this is not a grant we have to apply for. This is an ongoing federal entitlement grant, so we have the resources available.
Can make that part of the resolution too.
That was my same question.
I think we all noticed it.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
With, this is just like many of the other blighted property agenda items that we've had over the years. City of Moorhead wishes to take this property. We have that authority in statute if we find that it's blighted and that the use of the property would be better suited to go to a governmental entity than put back on the tax rolls through tax forfeiture sale. It's kind of the best of both worlds because it will go to the city, it will get cleaned up, and it will go back on the tax rolls. So we had a meeting about this last week, and it's a very cooperative relationship, and this is truly the best outcome for this terrible situation at this point.
I think it's a great idea. I'm not opposed to that, but aren't these funds available to the city of Moorhead also then, this grant, or are they just available to the county, or?
They will stay with the city. We will take the property and then we will use our funds, these grant funds, these federal grant funds to clean the property up.
I think what's appropriate here is a motion that would be based on the fact that it's a blighted property, that we would authorize the city to take over and to restore it using city funds, or however would that be appropriate?
Yep, that's appropriate. They are city funds. The city has these funds in the form of a grant. They wish to take the property and use their funds to bring the property up to par and then work with Habitat for Humanity to construct a new residence. And
I don't think that's any
that's
of
not
our
it.
concern.
No. That's not any of our concern.
Yeah.
If the city later decides not to work with Habitat for Humanity.
I don't think we want to have that in our resolution.
No, it wouldn't be part of the motion, for sure. But
Really, I think that the request that we would have from the county is to approve the transfer of the tax forfeiture.
That's correct.
And again, I think whoever makes it, I would suggest that we do it contingent upon the city council's affirmative action.
So there's no one else involved with this property anymore? I mean, when you say the owner died or something like that, or, because you said the water was still on, so was someone paying the bill for the water still?
I believe it was on auto pay. And it's just entered the tax forfeiture process recently.
The county owns the property currently. Well, the state owns it technically. The county is is entrusted with the management of the property on behalf of the taxpayers of the state of Minnesota. So because of the non-payment of taxes and the passage of time, it's no longer in private ownership. The county is the current owner.
I'll make a motion to approve the request pending City of Moorhead's approval, but also clarifying that City of Moorhead funds will go to restore it.
Second.
Okay, we have that motion and a second. Any further discussion? And obviously that motion indicates that we agree that it's a blighted property. Very good. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, Julie, before we begin though, you have Katie here too, huh? Somebody has an anniversary with us? Huh? So, Katie, 20 years.
Yes.
There's excitement in grateful recognition for 20 years of outstanding, dedicated service. Thank you on behalf of everyone from Clay County for all you do.
Thank you very much.
And your work that you're doing with this transition. That's pretty amazing work. So thank you. And I know Julie probably wants to say a few things.
Well, we feel very fortunate to have Katie on board. She's been a great employee for us. She's got that positive attitude as y'all just seen. She's been a team leader for us for many, many years, and recently she's taken the new role of running our jail transition team. She's doing an awesome job. I can't say enough good things about Katie. We're really happy to have her. So.
All right. Gee, it's exciting to see people come in with such enthusiasm that they
Isn't that great?
got through 20 years here.
Yeah.
All right, Julie, we have a couple of things here. You have a request to fill vacancy for corrections officer position.
Yep. I have a full-time male corrections officer. One of my most recent hires got hired with Moorhead Police Department. Kind of knew that was coming when we hired her to fill in, but At this time, we had a female filling it in, but it really should be a male corrections officer, so at this time, we request that we fill it with a male full-time position. There would be a cost savings of approximately $4,600.
Is there a reason why we have to indicate gender?
Yeah, I need to have enough male and female working.
Well,
together.
but I think we just give you the authority to
Right.
hire, and you have to fill a certain ratio.
Yep.
You know, so I don't know if it's something that we have to really include in our motion, I
think
guess is.
Part of the reason is that personnel keeps an eye on this, and then they'll have my job posting ready for me when I walk out the door, and they know I need a male. But
So, but does it hurt to, whether you, even if you had female applications, because they might be useful later?
Well, when I advertise for this one, it'll be for males.
Okay.
Strictly for males.
Yeah, well, you can do that,
Yeah.
but it, okay.
Yeah, I can in the future not. I'll just put
I just
full-time.
don't know that I'd
Sure.
like to do gender
be
specific.
gender
Huh?
neutral.
You know, I don't
Gender
want to
neutral.
control gender.
Not a problem, I can do that.
I'll move to approve.
All right, we have a motion to approve filling a position in the corrections. Is there a second? All right. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Next, we have the renewal of the inmate telephone contract to include video visitation for the new facility.
Yeah, so our current vendor is Reliance Telephone. We currently have a video visitation agreement with them that goes until we move into our new facility. Our telephone contract actually is on a renewal if we don't have any issues, and I just like to get this contract signed so that when we move into the new facility, they're moving in with us, so they can plan ahead of time. We will be increasing our video visitation when we move into the new facility. One area to think about, or I just want to remind you about, is in the construction costs, we had $104,000 in there for video visitation, which we took out because I felt that with a vendor, we could get a better deal. And we can. Basically, with this 5-year contract, that video visitation is going to cost us about $84,000. We don't have to fix the equipment, we don't have to replace it, we don't have to maintain it, I don't have to find somebody to come in and work on it. If anything's broke, it's their responsibility to come in and get it taken care of. In addition, with this video visitation, when we move into the new system, we're going to also add texting within the jail. And that revenue we'll make from texting will cover the cost of this video visitation.
So, Julie, when you say video visitation, that we're going to allow for it, we are certainly not going to make that a requirement, right now, because we still, for local people and their families that want to come and visit with somebody, that's still going to be available to them.
Video visitation is what's available. That's what we have now,
Okay, but,
and that's what we'll have in the new facility.
so they can't even, nobody can visit them?
They come, well, in the new facility, they'll come to a lobby.
Okay.
And the equipment's sitting right there.
Okay.
And they will talk through the kiosks. and
Oh, yeah, but they can virtually see them. They can
Yeah,
see
oh,
them right there.
absolutely,
It's not
yeah.
like you can't, you got to do it from,
No, we haven't planned for off-site visitation, which we might do in the future because if the community would like that.
Okay.
Just don't have to travel, but right now, it'll be on-site video
yeah,
visitation.
I just want to make sure that there could
Yeah.
actually be the visual.
There is some of that built into the second phase of our facility,
Okay.
but definitely not in the first
I
phase.
think Commissioner Mosher was
Yep.
raised that same issue
Yep.
in the past, that we want to make sure that families and especially kids who might want to see their
Yep.
parent who's there.
Yeah, we have a couple rooms in the second phase that we have set up for a similar contact visit like we have now.
I just want to make sure that, I mean, we've talked a lot on this, and I just want to make sure that we have that in whatever our protocols are, that it identifies how we want to approach that. I know that there are court-ordered face-to-face that will happen, but particularly for minors, be it with a social worker or a screened adult.
Right, very good.
When you say texting and all, is that monitored at all, or?
Yep, actually, any text that goes out, we can get a printout of, so we can block it, just like a restricted phone number, we can block it through the texting system. It's relatively new within the last probably year and a half, but it is being used in Minnesota. I know, for example, Crow Wing County, I asked them what they're generating a month for revenue. They're getting about $6,800 in revenue. That's 250 inmates, so I figure we could easily see about $3,000 for revenue to cover any cost of this video visitation.
All right, well, I think it's important to have that done now, so you can even plan for So do we have a motion?
I actually have this one is the one I'd like you to sign. This one has a 5-year contract. One of the contracts in there mistakenly had 3-year. They should all be a 5-year.
I make a motion.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion second, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. All right, I'll sign these. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rhonda, I think you're up next. Julie?
Morning.
I'll let you.
Okay, I apologize, I did not get information to you in the board packet, but I had another resignation in our child protection unit. So this is our third resignation in that unit in the last couple months. Again, this is our grouping of 7 we had hired a couple years ago, and it's not uncommon that we see folks who start out in the field and decide maybe they want to pursue other options, and that's happened in this case again. So I'm requesting permission to fill this child protection position.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. All right, thank you, Rhonda.
I did have another resignation last Thursday as well in our income maintenance unit, one of our financial workers. Is that something we could address today, or would you like me to come back next week?
Do it now.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve that request with possible backfill.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on that. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So, Rhonda, I have a question for you before you leave, because I know we're going to be talking about the budget. Your income maintenance unit and some of these others are ones where they also produce revenue, correct?
Correct, yeah, yep.
My question for you, we've always stated that maybe it would pay for 50% or whatever of the position. Is the reimbursement based on the individual's current salary, or is it based on a set dollar amount?
It's based on their current salary, because
So
it goes into a cost.
So if they get a step or a COLA, then the grant portion also,
Yes.
okay, that's very good to know.
Yep. So this financial worker position, that one is eligible for 50% reimbursement.
At their income rate.
Yes, correct.
Very good, all right.
Yep.
That was something I've never asked before.
Yeah, good question.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, Brian and Lori, we got some not so good news here last week.
Yeah, Rhonda left, but Rhonda gave us a bit of good news.
All right, good.
Help out things a little bit, so
Good.
we'll
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you again, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Before you again, what we handed out, Lori and I handed out here, is you had asked us to go back, review the budgets again in regards to, or with the departments, see what dollars you can come up with. And so I've put that request out and visited directly with several of the department heads. You'll see there's some increases in revenue. One you acted on last week, or 2 weeks ago, I should say, and that's the assessor's revenue. She's moving forward with that, and I think she informed you of the different changes and the different effects. Some of the townships, their fee had gone down, and of course, some had edged up a little bit. So it was, I think it's just the accurate thing to do, to make those adjustments on it. And then you'll see some of the departments, I don't need to go through them line by line, of the reductions. So it's either an increase in the revenue or a reduction in their expenditures that you will see. And you'll notice that social services, through some revenues from Indian child welfare and reduced expenses and some increased revenues in some other areas, that she has gotten recent notification of. That was a swing of $379,000. That helped a great deal. And then at the last meeting, you had talked about, I think, Mr. Chair, you had talked about the highway building sale and delaying the payments on that of $100,000. And
Well, I didn't, not delaying, but just extending from 5 to 7.
That's exactly right, yeah, just delaying a payment out a year or two. And then also, I think Commissioner Mojo had suggested the utilization of the Felton Prairie land sale for discussion, so we've included that in this memo as well. So then if you go, oh, but the biggie that I think, and I think I sent this out in a note, that the increase on the insurance, our health insurance, was 14.9% increase. We have an insurance meeting after that, after this meeting this morning, and we just have to figure out some way to smoothen out these peaks and valleys. Last year, I think it was a 1.2% increase. This year, it's a 14.9%. And that's a lot. In the year before that, it was 12. And I think we need to talk about that in future years. I don't know about this year, but that figure alone.
Hang on a second, Commissioner Motion.
Sorry.
It's a 2-year average, correct, on that
Well,
insurance?
that's what they keep telling me. Once I've been told 30 months, once I've been told 24 months, and then I was over at the city last week, and they were told 18-month average.
Right.
So we'll find out this morning, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean,
Actually
I'd like
it
to really
is.
clarify
I'd like to see a
that.
spreadsheet of exactly what they're using to get to that number. Because
Right.
how do you go from 1.2 to 14%?
Well, especially as now we try to budget forward, it doesn't, unless there really have been huge things in the last 18 to 24 months, it doesn't make sense why there'd be a 14.5 jump.
Yeah. Well, I think if you look over, Mr. Chair and Commissioner Mojo, I think if you look over any 24 to 30-month period, you're going to have some major issues, and that should smoothen out. If you look at it, I mean, just this jumping, it just doesn't seem right to me. And yeah, I feel if the insurance company or if the co-op cannot level it out, we are going to have to do something with the
Figure it out.
county. Yeah,
No, I
and do
agree.
some stable budgeting on it, so it doesn't fluctuate every year so much.
Well, and I think it was a comparison to that, what we talked about last year was similar to elections.
Right.
You know,
Yes,
at
that's
least we
exactly
can help stabilize a little bit so that we're not upping and down our levy considerably and what our people want to do is see things as stable as
That's exactly
possible.
right.
And going from a 1% 1 year in health insurance to 14 another, that's to put that all on a taxpayer 1 year, and then you give them a relief 1 year, and they think, oh, okay, well, that's it, and then you go back with another 14. They don't like that, and
That's right.
and we do need to come up with and I'm glad we're going to talk, you'll lead that discussion with.
Well, okay.
One question on the Eliminate Water Lab.
Oh, yeah, we need to talk about that.
Are we doing something different for that then, or?
Mr. Chair, and I'm so glad Commissioner Gross said, we didn't mean to ignore that. The Planning and Zoning Office said that if they eliminate the testing of the water lab, it's $21,704 that we do spend on an annual basis out of taxpayers' money to do that. They don't have a lot of requests coming in, and there are some private labs that will do that. I know this is very nice to have in times of flood, but it's a pretty hefty expense too. So that you have to give some pause to and think about. So I'm so glad you brought that up. I didn't mean to ignore it.
So if somebody wants their water tested, then shouldn't the revenue be there for that?
Yeah, it isn't though. It doesn't nearly cover the costs of the
I don't think we have
amount of
enough
tests that we have.
requests.
No, we don't have enough requests.
To generate enough revenue to cover the expenses.
My point though is if people still want the county for some reason to do the test, then there should be a charge that covers the complete cost of the test.
Well, if we contracted with it, then it probably would, right?
Yeah.
That's so we wouldn't. What I'm saying then is we wouldn't have to budget necessarily anything in there for the expense of it, and if we but then maybe somebody's going to feel more comfortable coming to a government agency but we still have to have somebody test it for us.
Well, we still have to maintain the water lab.
No, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, what has been explained to me and what the thought that we could do is if somebody brought in a sample, we can instruct them how to collect the sample, and then we could send it over to Detroit Lakes. They have a commercial testing, and they could send the results, or we could give them instructions to mail it themselves. That would be a lot cheaper than us. But there is a certification, and that was the big change in recent years, is the certification. The state no longer comes out and certifies the lab.
My point being is exactly that. So if somebody still wants to bring it to us, if somebody feels more comfortable bringing it to the county, then the county would say, well, okay, here's your cost, to have your water tested.
To mail it and bring it back,
And then we can take care of the mailing and all that for them, if that's what they prefer. That's all I'm suggesting.
I would think that would be very possible.
And I think there, we would not then have to incorporate
the fixed costs.
The fixed cost, because that would be resolved it would be offset by the revenue.
Exactly.
I think that's very,
Would you agree with that, Lori, that would be a way that we could do that?
Yeah, I would think that would be a better way, since we do not get a lot of requests for these.
But some people, when it comes to that, they might feel more comfortable, they may not know where to go, and we can say, well, look, we can help you out. That's a service that we're doing, but you just have to pay the cost.
Yep, that's right. Yep. No, I think that's very logical. And we've talked about that in the past, 2, 3, 4 years ago when we talked about that.
Commissioner Gross, is that? Okay. Okay.
So with these changes on the front sheet, and, we certainly aren't acting on them today, but these are just suggestions. And that then, and you'll see that's quite a hit on the insurance. $722,000 is an awful lot. You'll see on the summary of the 2018 tax levy by funds, you still see it's not where you folks want it to be, and we know that, but $722,000 in insurance, and then the new request of $835,000, and then, of course, the 6% COLA. Boy, you're at $2 million. So
no, what
2.5% COLA.
What did I say?
6.
I'm okay. I meant the 6% levy increase.
He was talking about his salary.
Yeah, right. So you can see how it adds up pretty fast, and what we did is, you can see the numbers as they come down, and then what we did is we added a third page to it, because we've kind of got everything covered. We have, Julie did send me a 2019 budget, and she feels that with some revenue projections and some reductions in cost, it is about a $500,000 switch, and that's what we have allowed for already. So, and using some of the in-fund balances that we already have and the revenues that we've sold some of that property and things, if you reduce an additional $250,000, now you see the figures on the last page. And I'm not suggesting that, but Lori and I have talked about it. We feel that we could recommend to you folks that without too much hesitation. So I know it's your decision to make, but
and we have a couple of weeks.
We have a couple more weeks yet. Mm-hmm. But hopefully it's starting to get into the range where you folks want.
Brian, I would still, I wouldn't mind for us to, like next week, for example, let's take a look at the 2018 correctional facility budget issues in terms of where we're at now, the new dollars that are anticipated in staffing. I know there's been this discussion about 15 new ones, I believe it is,
right,
that we're talking about. And then also, hopefully we're going to see partial year savings on the shipping out. But I think it would be good for us to maybe just focus on a recap of that too,
right,
and have a discussion about that, and so that we're all real comfortable with what's going on there, and is this 15 number, who's deciding that, I think we need to have that
Okay,
conversation.
and, yes, Mr. Chair, and actually it's 16, it's 16.
Okay,
because
well, whatever it
15
is.
15 corrections.
It seems to
officers
grow by
are
one every month. So,
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I think that is a point of discussion. I know I've had some discussions with Julie, and where does the information come from, and things along those lines. So I think that's your huge jump this year, and we'll try to even that out.
And I've always thought too that some of that stuff, it's almost like a one-time cost, you know, when you, and so is there something of that based on some other, because of some of the other project stuff that's come in really, really good, you know, we're still bonding for the full numbers, 16 million, and I think there's some, I don't know that I'm ready to just even commit to this third page here when we've got some other things to.
No, we understand that.
I know Lori's gonna get nervous going more than that, but I think we have to have the discussion to.
Well, some of those jail costs are one-time, so I'm more comfortable than I normally would be.
Right.
Going into fund balance.
Right.
We have accounted for some of that already, you know,
Yeah.
if we go.
But I think, can I ask you this question? In terms of the rules on dollars or project dollars used by the bond, can one-time costs that are associated with that be included and paid for out of those dollars?
I'm not sure,
Can
but I
we-
think.
can we inquire into that?
Yeah, I can double check on that.
You know, because, for example, to me, we're gonna bond all this money, and let's assume that we get all done with this, because we have gross maximum prices on these things, and we kind of know, and we know what, everything else is gonna be paid for, the parking lots, all that stuff's gonna all be done. And if we end up with $1 million excess bond dollars at the end of this deal, I'm not saying there is gonna be right now, because I don't know yet. But if there was, then could one-time numbers or one-time expenses associated with, could they have been paid with those bond dollars that you have the cash for anyhow?
I'll double check on that. Honestly, I don't know.
I think it's worthy to check on, and then I think before we do this, we can even dive into a little bit more on a complete construction update on finances, on where we are. And if there would be bond dollars available that we can't, because once it's done, you don't have many options on what you can do with those bond dollars.
Correct, yeah.
They either go to pay it back or, you know, so that you're very limited.
Pretty limited on what we can use those for.
But are one of those limitations
One-time costs.
one-time costs? Because that could work to our benefit.
And I think, Mr. Chair, and this is a different bond than the highway bond, but this bond also included a premium, if you remember correctly on that, and it did with the highway funding as well. And we did check on that, and they said that principal interest can be paid back with those premium dollars. So, I mean, that's just for information.
Well,
So-
I just want us to even look at some of these one-time costs as a way to help minimize what we're putting on to our taxpayers, I guess. So,
Very good.
All right.
Any other questions of us?
Just a comment, I want to express my gratitude to the different departments for reanalyzing and coming back with some of these proposals. I think every little bit helps, especially when we're faced with large insurance increases. But two, I had commented a little bit about the printing and publishing piece, and I understand that some people have that in if they have jobs that they're expecting to be open in the next coming year. But I think that's an area we can really kind of tweak specifically. There are some different departments I looked at that had larger amounts in there that hadn't really even been close to being used. And I think some of these departments that have, you know, I don't know, a nominal amount, $500, $700, I think is minimal, but some of them can be reanalyzed. So maybe my hope is that we can kind of look at those smaller areas, and if we haven't used them for 3 years, I'm not quite sure why we're budgeting for them.
Right. I do have a quick comment on that. We're required to publish our financial statements, which we do, which is about $15,000. About half the counties don't, and they just put it on their website. So that is an area that you could look at, but like, it is by statute, you're required to publish them, but, and they tried to bring it through and get it approved to only put it on your website. That has not passed yet. But about half the counties do not publish their financials, and they only put it on their website, so that's kind of a Jenny.
I think we've talked about that before.
Yeah.
Yes, we have.
And we've looked at the statute, and the statute's clear, and it requires publishing.
Right.
That in practice isn't what happens in many counties.
Right. I am all for that. I think the transparency is important, but there are some other areas where I think we can limit.
And Mr. Chair, Commissioner Mojo and I did have this conversation, and that's why you'll see the $1,000 out of my printing budget. I did have $1,000 in for printing of advertising to fill a position, so.
So we're not gonna need that.
I didn't say that. It's just a little humor.
If I can, Lori, if I can ask one more thing from you too. You know, we put down here the new construction amount, and we kind of lower the levy.
Right.
But we've also have the issue about the new construction, how there's a 2-year deferral. Can you give us an idea? We also have ones from 2 years ago that are now coming back on.
Right.
Versus the ones that we have to reimburse. That's the number that the difference is the number that we kind of have to deal with in budgeting, right? In terms of, because you got to think we're now getting.
Yeah, some of those are coming off now. So, right, for this year, it's 480,000, so that should be pretty stable going forward. So it's 480 coming off, 480 going on.
Yeah.
So it should be pretty stable moving forward now.
So the number that you budget then, is that's that stabilized number?
Well, 480 is the actual, what I've calculated using 2017 rates, but payable 18 values.
So
480 is what I've calculated will be
paid or reimbursed?
Will be reimbursed to the people adjusted by the new rate.
Okay, but then are you also, is our revenue side incorporating the 480 from 2 years ago?
It would be, I mean, just by virtue of this new construction coming on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we are going to see the benefit of the 1.49.
We should now, yeah, because we kind of took the hit initially, but now it should be pretty stable going forward.
And that could fluctuate by
100 grand.
A fraction of a percent or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, I just wanted to make sure. Thank you. Anything else in the budget? We're running late here. And Brian, while we go through our committee reports, we kind of have a conflict here because we both have PIC committee meetings scheduled for today, plus there's an insurance committee meeting.
Insurance committee meeting right now.
Yeah, starting at 10:30.
Yeah, and we both had in our calendar also a PIC meeting.
Mr. Chair, I don't believe the PIC, I'll check on that, but I don't think the PIC meeting I think that was canceled.
Okay.
Let me check.
Okay, I know both of us had it in it. Thank you. You can maybe look at that. And we'll go to I think the last thing we have now is our committee reports, correct? I lost my agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Lori, too.
Yep, you're right.
Okay. Commissioner Bland, would you like to start today in committee reports?
Yeah, let's see, so, in the last...
And we got a 2-week period to cover here.
Yeah. Let's see, I had, we went to Prairie Lakes Solid Waste in Purim, and the litigation there is now resolved, and we did prevail in that, and I think we got $400,000, so everything is looking good there for the year. I think we're going to be in the black by the end of the year, which is shocking at best, considering the way it's been for the last several years, so that's going well. We also had the solid waste advisory meeting, and everything is on track there. We're still hoping to get money for the new transfer station, bonding money next year, and Steve Moore from the city gave a report on single sort recycling, and that's pretty phenomenal what's going on there. I mean, it's, Kevin, didn't he say it's something like they've collected more in 1 month than they did in the first 6 months of last year in terms of, so that's pretty amazing how it's changed with that single sort. And we had some diversion authority meetings pretty much to do with the hiring of an executive director for the diversion authority, and I think we've got that resolved. I don't know that there hasn't been any final commitment passed there by him yet, but
I haven't heard of it.
we're working on that. And we went to a Head of Heartland Trail meeting, and things are moving kind of slow in the Heartland Trail, but we're still working on it, and we're looking at some bonding money next year for the Clay County section. And Representative Lean was at the meeting, and he's supportive of that, and hopefully we'll see some movement there. And I think that was it for me, so best I can remember. So.
All right. Commissioner Gross?
When the Historical Society, the things we covered there were pretty much upcoming meetings and stuff like that. Big event coming up is that St. John's Bible is going to be here from October 1st to December 31st, and that is going to be one heck of a display of the Bible, rewritten, handwritten calligraphy, so there'll be a good thing for people to visit there. Another thing that's almost just as important is the German Culture Society will also be on September the 16th. And they're also going to have a Giving Hearts Day, so if any of you participate in that Giving Hearts Day in 2018, if you want to contribute that to the Historical Society, we appreciate that. I also attended the City of Dilworth City Council meeting, big discussion on 15th Avenue North. Oak Park Township improved 15th Avenue North by putting a little more gravel on there, a little extra gravel to try and improve that road, and they're looking for a share of costs, and I think that's a discussion that we as a county, I don't know whether we have this county, I think we have to get involved there possibly, because 15th Avenue North borders the City of Dilworth, city limits, Oak Park Township, and Moore Township.
You're talking just east of Highway, or of 34th Street.
East of 34th Street, yeah. It's road use quite a bit, and Oak Park Township has a problem probably for maintaining it. I mean, they don't feel they have enough funds to maintain it the way it should be, so, I mean, that was a big discussion at that meeting, so. But,
it's a township road.
It is a town, right.
It was Township, Morden Township and Oak Park Township.
Right, and I think that's how they divide those roads up is a discussion. I don't know whether the county gets involved in that or whether the township decides who takes what road, what part of the road they take. But, I mean, that was one of the main discussions at that meeting. That was it for me.
Okay. Commissioner Mojo, do you want to go?
2 weeks ago, I attended the land management meeting of the Diversion Authority, basic property acquisition reports moving forward. There was some significant discussion. The Corps of Engineers has requested, or will be requesting right of entry from 8 areas around the southern embankment. That wasn't a dated letter. Those right of entries are hoping to go forward next spring, but because of the lawsuit decision that we're waiting on, didn't really have much support either way, but going forward on that. And cultural mitigation updates. It was a quicker meeting, I guess. I also attended the Lakes and Prairies Board meeting last week where we discussed the succession plans that have been laid forward and approved a funding request to help financially support the Clay County senior position, and that's a Land of the Dancing Sky grant. So I know, Grant, you're on that, so our thanks for the support there. You do good work in the county. And also discussed moving forward on approving the strategic plan, rough draft, and possible rebranding of naming what it's called. And I also attended the Lakeland Mental Health Center meeting. It was at the Moorhead office. That continues to see large margins. I believe last month the Moorhead site had a 13.62% growth margin, so it is well used. We also had updates from the administration team talking about staffing patterns and budgets for 2018. The county meetings will happen with Donna Baker and Rhonda Porter in September. That continues to be a good relationship. And Rhonda was there to express our appreciation for them approving our grant request for the mental health center in the jail funding. And then we had a update from the Mobile Crisis Center, Angel Pilka, with our mental health group. We've talked a lot about that, but it's interesting if you want to see what the dispatches are for the counties. In 2017, their amount of calls in the first 6 months have doubled over last year, so it's good news. We were concerned initially with people not knowing about that and not using it, but the dispatches, like I said, have gone up a lot, and I think between the sheriff's office and social services and the hospitals, there's a pretty good teamwork collaboration between them. So that concludes my reports.
Thank you. Okay. Commissioner Haney.
I attended, on Wednesday, August 23rd, I attended the Flood Diversion Financial Committee. It was my first essay into that, and I intended to go there just as the alternative to get acquainted with that committee. But as it turned out, Ms. Johnson had to go have some dental work done, and so I filled in for her. And we approved just current ongoing billing, and so there was nothing earth-shaking or policy changes or anything like that. Then I also attended, for the same reason, the Lakes and Prairies Community Action Program Board meeting along with Commissioner Mojo, and we had the budget and branding issues, the discussions that she spoke of. That was it.
All right, very good, thank you. All right, going back, we were supposed to have a communities task force meeting that was postponed until November. So I had on that a calendar of my committees, but in the meantime then, I ended up having the special meeting of the Diversion Authority in its place, which was on Thursday, the 31st. And that was for the purpose of, and Commissioner Williams already talked about that, with an executive director position being offered on that. Then on the, I'm not going to repeat these things, but the Prairie Lakes meeting that we talked about there, it's going to be in the black, and it's in the black by, going to be in the black by about $760,000. Now, about 400 of that, of course, is the revenues that came in from, but still going from where we were in the past to having a $360,000 in the black is great news. So we're turning that around. Then the Diversion Authority, we had the public outreach, and it's just always the questions about how they're dealing with each of the legislatures, both in Dakota and Minnesota. There's a video series that you can go to online now where it's these 3 questions where many people are making a video as to why they're involved with diversion, why they think it's needed, and so on and so forth. And so we get to review those. We got an update on the new members of the North Dakota State Water Commission. Then moving on to the Diversion Authority meeting on the 20th, going back, I think that's been talked about enough. I do want to mention on the land management issue that Commissioner Moser reported on. There was a discussion about the potential work that might need to be done on Minnesota properties based on the southern embankment that the Corps is designing. To further their design, they're going to need to have access for the purpose of soil borings and things of that nature, and it's quite clear that some of those folks aren't thrilled about the project. And, because the watershed has decided not to be part of this process, we are looking at, I've had discussions with the mayor, and I think we're going to look at whose responsibility will that be to, in the event that we have landowners who won't cooperate without it going to court, how that procedure will work. So we're having those discussions now. I know that the federal government certainly has their authority to do it, but I think before we want to consider them, we would like to see a local jurisdiction do that. The city of Moorhead has the ability to do it, and so does Clay County, so we're going to be discussing that as Minnesota members. And obviously, whatever we do has to fall in line with the current legal situation with the state of Minnesota. So we won't be doing anything that would violate anything there while the court action's in place. Okay, then Clay County Solid Waste, I think that's been reported on. So has I think that covers all my meetings. Ryan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. By the way, we have insurance committee at 10:30, and we don't have Nick today, so.
Yeah. I have down the 19th as a pick meeting. I just looked in my...
Sounds about right.
In my book, or in my phone.
Okay, Stephen, Mr. Chair, Steve and I met with Burns and communicated back and forth, and we've already addressed that. Lori and I did quite a bit of budget work with the departments and different things during this time. I attended 2 FM diversion meetings. One was your regular one, and then you also had a special meeting last Wednesday, was it? Last Wednesday you had a special meeting?
The 31st, whatever that is.
Yeah, and then dealt with some personnel matters. Had a meeting with Kathy, reference a school nurse. She still hasn't been successful at securing one for Holly. We're talking about some different options there. I was asked to, the city manager, Moorhead city manager, asked me to sit in on for some interviews with selecting her assistant city manager. So I did that last Tuesday in lieu of the county board meeting. You had a county board meeting, I could have bowed out of that, but you didn't. So anyway, dealing with some construction things around here last week or so. A couple more communications reference Lakes 15, and I think some things are advancing there and moving along fairly well. Colleen was out last week on vacation, so we're in a total chaos around here. So anyway, thank you, Mr. Chair. That completes my report.
Thank you. Anything else?
No, thank you.
Colleen, welcome back. All right, with that, we'll be adjourned.